is a way to show us, to
Mm-hmm.
find all knowledge. That's one way that could work.
Sure.
Now, that doesn't fit in a system where God is love, but that's not the system we're building. We're building the God is knowledge system right now. We'll do the God is love system, and that's where this gets into problems. See, we'll finish this, and we'll build the system of an all-knowing God, and then you put it against the system about anything else we can say about God, and we can say all kinds of things about God, and so then you have to figure out how to meld them, and that's the next task. But we're not going to do that tonight. So.
Over a beer on Wednesday.
That's right. No. So, again, we'll go back to our prime focus of our system. God is all-knowing. What's the church? And how does the church function as a vehicle to God if God is all-knowing in our system? And the ultimate purpose of God is to draw people to knowledge. What then?
The structure of this church?
Well, or what should the role of the church be? What's the function of the church?
To understand God.
To understand God and to explain God and to... Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
That's what Peter and Paul did they not?
Mm-hmm. So the church's function is to draw humanity to the all-knowing God by increasing their knowledge, instruction, and okay, that
stories,
fits.
Whatever.
That works.
Mm-hmm.
So again, God is all-knowing. The church's function is to draw people to the all-knowing God through instruction and stories and all of that. The sacraments, then, that show God to people, the vehicle by which people see an all-knowing God, would be less about mystery and more about clarity, right?
The sacraments?
The sacraments. If the sacraments are, the definition of sacrament is a vehicle through which we experience God, then the sacrament through which we experience an all-knowing God would be more about understanding and comprehension, I would think.
Make it clearer, sure.
Mm-hmm. So anything that makes the person of God clearer.
Or get it closer to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Through understanding.
Mm-hmm.
It's civilized.
Mm-hmm. So in a church built on solely the principle that God is all-knowing, perhaps the sermon would be the sacrament rather than the Eucharist.
True.
Oh, then you get into what is it? The Baptists?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because if our only point is that God is all-knowing, then we would see God more clearly through the explanation of God than we would through the mystical experience of.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd have to redefine for our system what we call sacrament. Maybe this would be the sacrament, this kind of conversation.
Sure.
Well, as Ruth at our table would have said, the music.
Mm-hmm.
Get up and
Mm-hmm.
let him know you're alive.
But if your primacy is God is all-knowing, then it actually doesn't matter whether you have music, because unless the music leads to knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So the sacraments would be those things that engage your intellect and your understanding rather than those things that engage your spirit and your heart.
Like
Mm-hmm.
like another.
Mm-hmm. So.
I think that's what a lot of people have trouble with,
Mm-hmm.
deciding which way religion is.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the sacraments and the dogma,
Mm-hmm.
or is it the feeling of your soul?
Mm-hmm. Or is it both?
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, of course, the sacraments feed your piety or your living out of your faith, which feeds your understanding of your faith, which feeds your experience of your faith, which feeds your understanding of the sacraments and your experience of the sacraments, which feeds your piety, which feeds your understanding.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, ideally, it all plays
together.
together.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't very often, but when in an ideal world,
Mm-hmm.
that's how it should work. All right, again, let's come back to our all-knowing God we've got here. What is the Spirit of God? If the only thing we care about God is that he's all-knowing.
That's where I would say the soul. Is it?
But what does it tell us about the soul? What if the Spirit
Spirit?
is the piece that interacts with our soul and God is all-knowing? What can we say?
Knowledge, I don't know.
Okay, so our spirit, the Spirit of God, is that which moves us to seek knowledge.
Okay, sure. I can buy that.
Would that fit in the system?
Yeah.
So the Spirit of God then is perceived anyway as the drive to discover. So the human being who wants to go over the hill and pull the lobster out of the ocean and eat it is the one most moved by the Spirit of God.
Or hunger.
Well, I want
Well,
that.
yes. No. Yes. Yeah, and you would have to be really hungry to look at that thing and say,
Oh, absolutely.
that must be good to eat. You know? I'll eat this big, huge cockroach I just pulled out of the ocean, really. You know? So, I feel the same way about artichokes. Somebody looked at that and said, there's something in there I could eat.
Like cauliflower, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always wonder how somebody came upon that, and then you bite into it, and all these
Yeah.
needles just attack the
Yeah.
roof of your mouth.
Okay. Last question. Again, in our system where God is knowledge, what does heaven look like? What is the ultimate? What is the ultimate when God is knowledge?
All knowledge.
All knowledge.
You don't know everything.
So when we reach the end times and are in the presence of God, we will
Know everything.
know all. Well, congratulations.
And when,
You have just built a theological system. Now, if we were truly going to study systematic theology and we were going to take a whole year at seminary to do this, we would then take our system about God being all knowledgeable and then build a system of God being all loving
Right.
and God being all present,
Omnipresent.
and God being just and God being merciful. And we would lay then all of those strands of systems together and say, oh,
What do they have in common?
what do they have in common? And also, where do you look at it and go, oh, wait, if this is true, this can't be true.
Right.
And how do we make them all?